Hello. Good morning. We're going to talk about the Holocaust today. Many of you guys are very familiar with the Holocaust and the atrocities committed by Nazi Germany against the Jews. There were 6 million Jews killed in the Holocaust, and there were 5 million other non-desirables that were killed in the Holocaust. So we're going to talk real briefly about it. In the beginning, the Nazis used many methods to deal with Jewish civilians. The term ghetto now is kind of used in a different reference, but during this time they were forced to live in ghettos, which were an area in the city that was ostracized from everybody else. They were labeled. So if you look in the picture here, the Star of David's present, it's a ghetto. Only people could live there that were Jews, that were with Jews, or Muslims with Muslims. So you had to be similar. Eventually, though, as the Nazi power grows in Germany, they'll be sent to concentration camps, which are labor camps, and some groups will be sent to death camps, which is mass execution centers. Dr. Mengele is going to be working closely with Hitler during this time, and he'll do some cruel medical experiments, and he did a study on twins. There are a few Holocaust survivors that are left in the world that were actually part of Mengele's experiments, excuse me. A lot of those personal testimonies of those experiments is like testing something or causing pain to one twin to see if the other feels it, injecting them with bacteria and diseases and things like that to see their reaction. Ultimately, Hitler is going to create this final solution. We talked about that with Hitler's larger plan for Germany, and this is their plan to mass execute the Jews. Hitler was concerned about the outcome of World War II, and he wants all Jewish people killed, and so he's going to mass kill them. So if you look over here at this chart, you can see the percentage of extermination of Jewish population by country. So like Lithuania, 96%. You get down to Czechoslovakia, 69%, and then these are the numbers here. Poland, 3 million. 3 million Jews were killed in Poland. Okay, so just keeping those numbers. Look in the USSR, 1 million. So very high numbers of Jewish people were killed, and then this is the rank of the extermination here. When we talk about the Jews being harmed or murdered in the concentration and death camps, if you look here, there are all their shoes from where they were put into the gas chambers and then incinerated. The Allied forces close in on Germany, the Nazi Party really tries to destroy the evidence or burn bodies and get rid of them. And if you see right here, they wear these striped uniforms to kind of identify them in the concentration camp. If you look here, they're extremely emaciated because they had ration cards during this time, so they did not receive hardly any food before they were in camps when they were in the ghettos. But then as they are entering the camps, the food is very scarce and not present. The victims, Jews were not the only group. They were the predominant group, but the Nazis imprisoned other groups such as Poles, Slavs, homosexuals, people with mental disabilities, handicapped people, gypsies, and intellectuals. My question to you is intellectuals, why are intellectuals typically killed first in movements like this? Make sure you jot that down in your notes. 5 million died in Nazi camps and 6 million Jews were killed. And this mass murder of Jews is known as the Holocaust. The Holocaust is still taught about today, and we have in North Carolina actually Council for the Holocaust. People are very concerned about the Holocaust people not being educated about the Holocaust or taught about it. And so we have groups that preserve and maintain the history, the documentation, and they teach the Holocaust. And so you have to I would definitely think about taking our Holocaust and genocide class on campus. If you look here, you can see the ribs here, bones from the incinerators here where they burn the bodies to dispose of them. And so what's going to end up happening is that the world's going to react. And in 1944, we have a war refuge board, and we try to rescue the European Jews. And the Allied forces, as we push back into Germany, as we finally start to gain some ground after we gain France back, then we discover camps. And so the Germans attempt to cover up the evidence. There are corpses found all over these camps, inmates who were nearly dead, and pieces of clothing. And one thing that they would do is that when the Nazi Party realized that the Americans or whoever Allied forces were closing in, they would send the Jews on a death march. So they would start marching them and try to march them to a different location so they could not be discovered. And so they would find people along the roads and things like that as they had marched, and they marched them to death. The Mediterranean theater I'm going to talk about tomorrow in class, so just make sure you get your notes filled in and they're organized and clean, please. And then when you are done with this video, ask Ms. McCray for your DBQ.